Let me ask you a question. What would your life look like if, for the next 12 months, you decided to become your own number one investment? Not your job, not your partner, not your social media following, but you. See, most people are running around trying to change everything outside of them while ignoring what's inside. They're rearranging furniture in a burning house, and what they don't realize is this: when you focus on yourself, your mindset, your skill set, your habits, your belief systems, everything else begins to align in ways you could have never orchestrated on your own. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's strategic. Let's break this down to one. You are the root of every result in your life. Imagine your life is a tree. The fruits, your finances, your relationships, your health are all hanging on branches. But the root, that's you. And too many people are frustrated at their fruit, not realizing they've never watered their root. If your income isn't growing, it's not the economy. It's the level of value you're bringing to the marketplace. If your relationships are broken, it's not just the people around you. It's the energy, the clarity, the communication, and the confidence you're bringing into them. You can't keep changing the soil if the seed is still buried in fear, procrastination, and doubt. Focus on the seed yourself, and the harvest will take care of itself. Two, self-investment is the highest ROI. Let me make this plain. You are the only asset you can't lose unless you neglect it. Stocks may crash, real estate may slow, businesses may fail, but the person who invests in themselves never runs out of opportunity. Because when you master a high-income skill, no one can take that from you. When you build emotional intelligence, you move with power in any room. When you develop spiritual discipline, your peace becomes untouchable. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your preparation. You want to change your life? Start waking up with purpose, reading to gain perspective, training your body like you respect it, surrounding yourself with winners, and stop explaining your vision to people who haven't earned a seat at your table. 3, focus is a superpower in a world of distraction. Let me tell you why most people never tap into their potential. It's not because they're not smart enough or skilled enough. It's because they're distracted. They're scrolling instead of studying. They're comparing instead of creating. They're gossiping instead of growing. But when you focus on yourself, something incredible happens. You stop watching others and start working on you. You stop wasting energy on things you can't control and start putting it into things that will compound your discipline, your business, your faith, your goals. You become magnetic, not because you're chasing opportunities, but because you're becoming the kind of person opportunities chase. 2P4, clarity unlocks acceleration. When you finally decide to focus on yourself, clarity shows up. You start asking better questions. What am I really good at? What problem can I solve that people will pay for? What's the next best version of me? And how do I meet them sooner? You see, clarity is the foundation of confidence. When you're clear about who you are, what you want, and where you're going, your actions become more powerful. You stop saying yes to mediocrity. You stop letting fear vote in your decision-making. You move with authority because you've taken the time to know who you are and what you bring to the table. 2.5. When you become better, life responds. Life is always mirroring who you are, not what you want. Want more peace, become more peaceful. Want more money, become more valuable. Want deeper relationships, become a person of depth. Everything you want is attracted to the version of you that's aligned with it. People ask, why hasn't it happened yet? The answer is simple: it's waiting on you, not your circumstances, not your parents, not the government, you. When you focus on your growth, your healing, your vision, your habits, things start falling into place, not because they got easier, but because you got stronger. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. That's the truth most people aren't ready to face. They write vision boards, say affirmations, chase goals, and wonder why their life looks the same year after year. The reality is simple. You can't attract a 10-level life with 2-level habits. You don't elevate by asking life to change. You elevate by becoming the kind of person who commands that change by default, because life doesn't respond to wishful thinking. Life responds to alignment. If you're still thinking like a consumer, living in scarcity, feeding your distractions, and avoiding responsibility, it doesn't matter how big your dream is, you're out of position to receive it. Your life is always a reflection of your identity, not your desire, not your hope. Your identity. That means if you want a different outcome, you don't just need a new strategy, you need a new standard, and that standard starts with how you see yourself. Do you see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who leads, someone who creates solutions? Or do you see yourself as someone who's trying, hoping, waiting on better timing or outside validation? Because how you see yourself dictates how you show up, and how you show up dictates what you allow, what you pursue, what you reject, and ultimately what you experience. Look around at your results, your money, your relationships, your health, your peace. Those are all byproducts of who you are on a consistent basis. They don't lie. They don't make excuses. They reveal the truth. If your bank account is inconsistent, it means your value in the marketplace inconsistent. If your relationships are full of conflict or emptiness, it means your internal peace and communication need work. If you're tired, overwhelmed, or unclear, it's a reflection of what you've allowed to take root in your thinking. Everything flows from identity. You cannot outperform the way you see yourself. This is where people get stuck. They try to change the fruit without changing the root. They want to fix the symptoms, but they don't want to address the system. But you have to understand, results are lagging indicators. They lag behind your character, your mindset, your skills, and your decisions. By the time you see the result, the identity that produced it has already been at work. So if you want to change your result, you've got to go upstream and fix the identity that created it. That's why the most powerful investment you can make is not in a course, a coach, or a strategy. It's in becoming a new version of you. Not a fake version, not a louder version, but a refined version, a decisive version, a self-led version, the kind of person who wakes up with intention, who honors their time, who commits to growth, and who no longer makes space for things that drain their purpose. That version of you already exists. You just have to strip away the fear, the habits, the lies, and the procrastination that have been covering them up. Change happens fast when identity shifts. That's why some people level up in months while others struggle for years. It's not because they worked harder. It's because they upgraded their internal operating system. When your identity catches up with your destiny, everything aligns. You stop negotiating with your greatness. You stop doubting your voice. You stop seeking external permission, and you start living from conviction, from clarity, and from power. Most people are working on the wrong part of the formula. They're working hard on output, how much they can do, how fast they can grind, how many boxes they can check. But they're not working on input, the belief systems that govern their behavior. Your identity drives your behavior. Your behavior produces your habits. Your habits determine your outcomes. So the fastest way to change your life is to become someone who naturally produces the outcomes you want. Not by force, but by design. You don't need more motivation. You need more identity alignment. The reason you don't follow through isn't because you're lazy. It's because your identity hasn't caught up with your vision. The reason you second guess yourself isn't because you're unqualified. It's because you've rehearsed a false narrative about your worth. The reason you keep circling the same mountain isn't because the answer isn't out there. It's because the transformation hasn't happened in here. Once the inside changes, the outside will follow. It has to. That's the law. This brings us to one of the most overlooked truths in the game of transformation. Mastery of self is the gateway to wealth. The difference between struggling entrepreneurs and scalable success isn't just knowledge. It's self-governance. It's the ability to lead yourself when no one is watching, to keep commitments to yourself when no one is clapping, to stay focused when distractions offer you easier routes. Wealth begins with discipline, not the kind that punishes, but the kind that positions you to win. You can't multiply what you can't manage. So before you ask for more money, more clients, more responsibility, ask yourself, can I handle what I already have? Have I mastered my current season? Am I operating with excellence? Am I consistent? Because money doesn't change you, it amplifies you. If you're scattered at one level, you'll be overwhelmed at the next. If you're procrastinating with one project, you'll drown with 10. If you can't lead yourself, you won't sustain leadership over anything else. Mastering yourself is about creating alignment between your values and your behavior. It means you live by principle, not preference. You move with integrity, not impulse. You build systems, not just hustle. This kind of mastery doesn't come from hype. It comes from training. You train your mind to focus. You train your body to respond. You train your emotions to serve, not sabotage you. You train your words to speak vision, not limitation. And most importantly, you train your spirit to lead your life, not your circumstances. And this is where so many people miss it. They look for outside validation instead of inside confirmation. They want the world to recognize them before they've taken time to develop themselves. But the world rewards the finished product, not the unfinished potential. If you're not willing to go through the process, you'll never own the promise. Mastery demands process. It demands you stop looking for hacks and start building foundations. It requires that you become a student of your own patterns and a steward of your own potential. What does that look like in real life? It means you take full ownership. You stop blaming your boss, your past, your partner, your parents. You stop outsourcing your power. You stop waiting for someone to notice you or give you a shot, and you realize you are the opportunity. You are the resource. You are the asset. If you invest in becoming the highest version of yourself, everything else you need will be added. Clients, partnerships, clarity, capital, purpose. All of it is drawn to the person who is ready for it. When you master yourself, your value in the marketplace increases. Why? Because people pay for certainty, they trust leadership, they are drawn to clarity. If you're scattered, unclear, and inconsistent, the market can feel it. But when you've done the internal work, you show up differently. You speak with authority. You deliver with excellence. You attract with energy. And people can't help but want to be in proximity to your presence because your presence solves problems. Mastery also means emotional intelligence. Can you lead yourself through disappointment without spiraling? Can you handle pressure without breaking? Can you navigate success without arrogance? Can you regulate your emotions so you don't destroy relationships or opportunities in moments of anger, fear, or pride? This is the level where wealth becomes sustainable, not just financially, but relationally, spiritually, and mentally. Because true wealth isn't just about what you accumulate. It's about what you can carry without collapsing. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about progression. Mastery of self doesn't mean you never fail. It means you fail forward. You learn fast. You take responsibility. You move with wisdom. You course correct. You get back up, not just because you're strong, but because you decided that your calling is too important to be held hostage by a moment of weakness. You don't negotiate with discipline. You don't play with purpose. You protect your future by mastering the person who controls it, you. And let's be clear, this isn't always glamorous. Most of the time, self-mastery is invisible. It's not posted on social media. It's in the quiet choices, the early mornings, the hard conversations, the extra reps, The book you read instead of the show you binge, the budget you stick to when no one's watching, the apology you give when pride says, stay silent. These small moments don't always look like success, but they become success. Because every time you choose alignment over comfort, you're stacking a new level of self-trust. And self-trust is the real currency of personal power. So if you want more, become more. If you want different, move different. If you want next level, start with the inner level. The results you're chasing will show up when the you that's ready for them shows up. Until then, every delay isn't denial, it's preparation. You're not waiting on money, opportunity, or timing, you're waiting on mastery. And when that mastery clicks into place, everything else will fall into line, because when you become the person who's aligned with the life you want, that life won't be able to stay away from you. It will chase you down, not because you forced it, but because you became it. What you focus on is what you multiply. Most people walk through life completely unaware of the power their attention holds. They think success is about time management or grinding harder, but the truth is, it's about focus management. You can have all the time in the world, but if your focus is scattered, your life will be too. You can have talent, vision, strategy, and goals. But if you're feeding distractions instead of your direction, you're not building a future, you're delaying it. Focus is not just about concentration, it's about dominion. It's about taking ownership of where your mental energy goes, because wherever your energy flows, results grow. People spend hours every day focusing on what they don't want. They rehearse fear, replay failure, obsess over what people think, and magnify every obstacle. And then they wonder why life feels heavy, complicated, and chaotic. But what they fail to understand is this: your focus is fertilizer. It will make whatever it touches grow. Focus on excuses, and your excuses will become reality. Focus on problems, and your life will attract more of them. But when you begin to focus on vision, on purpose, on growth, on self-leadership, everything shifts. You stop reacting to life and start creating it. That's the dividing line between people who thrive and people who survive. Thrivers direct their focus with intention. They don't wake up and hope the day leads them somewhere productive. They wake up and assign their attention to the things that matter most. And here's the key egg: focus is not natural. Distraction is natural. You will never drift into greatness. You will only drift into mediocrity. If you want to grow, if you want to scale, if you want to multiply your results, you have to train your focus. Just like a muscle, it gets stronger with discipline and weaker with neglect. The reason most people struggle with focus isn't because they lack discipline. It's because they haven't decided what truly matters. When you're unclear on your priorities, everything feels important. And when everything feels important, nothing gets done. That's why successful people are not obsessed with doing more. They're obsessed with doing what matters most. They cut through the noise. They know their top 3 outcomes for the day before they check a single email or scroll one post. They've eliminated the need to react because they live from a place of pre-decided direction. Focus is also a filter. It keeps out the things that drain your energy and invites in the things that align with your mission. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's not always a sign that you're doing too much. It may be that you're focused on too many things that don't actually serve your future. Clarity is what eliminates overwhelm. When you get clear on what season you're in, what assignment you're carrying, and what outcome you're committed to, you stop saying yes to everything that just looks good and start saying yes only to what is good for your purpose. But let's go deeper. Focus is a commitment to refuse the distractions that feel urgent but aren't important. Urgency is not always truth. Sometimes the most urgent feeling is just a reaction from someone else's lack of planning, or a fear you've been carrying that it's all going to fall apart. You've got to understand, not every fire is your fire to fight. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it's worthy of your attention. Leaders know the difference between noise and signal. They know how to tune out the chaos and tune into the voice of vision. Here's where it gets real. What you focus on becomes your emotional home. If you focus on being offended, you'll live in anger. If you focus on loss, you'll live in grief. If you focus on what's missing, you'll live in scarcity. But when you focus on possibilities, gratitude, strategy, and growth, you rewire your nervous system to operate from expansion, not contraction. And from that state, you make different decisions. Better decisions, decisions that pull you into your future instead of anchoring you to your past. Focus isn't just mental, it's spiritual. It's about aligning your internal world so strongly with where you're headed that the outside world has no choice but to respond. But that requires discipline, and the enemy of discipline is distraction. The enemy of focus is entertainment that adds no value. The enemy of progress is the addiction to being busy without being effective. So if you want to win, you've got to learn to starve your distractions and feed your vision. Turn down the noise. Stop letting your phone, your fear, or other people's agendas run your day. Success starts when you reclaim your focus, and the secret to locking in your focus is simply to decide who you want to become, not what you want to do, who you want to become, because identity is what sustains focus. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you don't get pulled into every opportunity, every comment, every emotion. You've got a filter, you've got standards, you've got boundaries, you've got a future you've already said yes to. So it's easy to say no to everything else that doesn't fit that picture. Focus gives you power, distraction drains it. Every day you're either building or bleeding, and the difference is what you're focused on. And that leads us to one of the most underrated forces in personal growth: habits. Because once you lock in your focus, the next level is building the right habits that automate your success. Most people think habits are boring, rigid, or restrictive. But the truth is, habits are your freedom plan. Discipline isn't a prison, it's protection. Systems don't box you in, they break you out. When you build the right habits, you're no longer relying on motivation or memory. You're relying on structure, and structure beats chaos every time. The right habits make you unstoppable, not because they make you perfect, but because they make you consistent. And consistency is the real secret to mastery. Anybody can have a good day. Anybody can grind for a week. But habits are what make success sustainable. They are the invisible architecture behind every transformation. They don't always feel exciting, but they always produce results. And that's where most people fall short. They want the feeling of success before they commit to the discipline that produces it. But the top performers understand the true thing. It's not about motivation, it's about systems. It's not about emotion, it's about execution. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your preparation. And habits are preparation. They're the compound interest of discipline. Do a little every day, and eventually you'll have results that look like magic to everybody else. But it wasn't magic. It was mastery. And mastery is just doing the right thing enough times that it becomes your default instead of your exception. This is where personal growth gets practical. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. You just need to upgrade one habit at a time. Wake up 1 hour earlier. Cut out one toxic relationship. Read 10 pages a day. Track your expenses. Plan your day the night before. Small hinges swing big doors. The goal isn't to be impressive. The goal is to be intentional. Stack small wins every day, and you'll look up in 90 days and not recognize your life. Not because you got lucky, but because you got locked in. Habits also build confidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust with yourself, and self-trust is a superpower. When you trust yourself, you don't need external validation to move forward. You're not paralyzed by opinions. You're not waiting for the perfect moment. You become the momentum. But if you keep breaking your own word, your subconscious starts to believe you can't be trusted. That's when procrastination takes over. That's when fear has a seat at the table. But when you show up for yourself daily, even in small ways, your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's trying and seeing yourself as someone who executes. Habits also protect you from decision fatigue. Most people are exhausted not because they're doing too much, but because they're making too many decisions. But when you build habits, you remove the friction, you remove the drama. You know what you're eating, you know when you're working, you know what time you wake up. You know what gets your attention, you've already decided. So now all that mental energy can be redirected toward creation, execution, and growth. Habits free up space for your genius to thrive. But here's the key to making habits sticking: you have to anchor them to your identity. Don't just say, I want to work out more. Say, I am someone who honors my body and my health. Don't just say, I want to make more money. Say, I am someone who adds massive value to the marketplace. When your habits align with who you believe you are, they don't feel forced. They feel natural because they're not something you're trying, they're something you are. And finally, let's talk about momentum, because momentum is not a mystery. It's a habitual byproduct. It's what happens when focus and habits meet. When you know what matters and you show up for it every day, even when you don't feel like it, momentum begins to build. And once momentum shows up, everything gets easier. Clarity increases, opportunities open, energy multiplies, confidence explodes. You move from trying to thriving, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You mastered your focus. You built the right habits. And now everything around you has no choice but to rise to your new standard. Here's the truth: nobody's coming to save you. And that's the best news you'll hear all day, because it means everything you need is already inside you. You've got one job: build the best version of you. Because when you focus on yourself with intention, discipline, and faith, your money starts lining up, your peace increases, your business grows, your relationships get healthier, and your life starts to feel like it was designed on purpose. So stop waiting, start becoming, because when you focus on yourself, everything else will fall into place.